Good evening, everybody. Welcome, corner. We are to have you on our last episode of Kojo's Corner. So, today we are going to be talking about some of the things that happened throughout the year. Throughout the year, a lot has happened in 2023, and one of the things that we know has been a huge issue is housing. Housing has been one of the challenges that everyone is facing. And just wanted to review some things that happened in 2023. It's been a long year. Lots of things have happened, and sometimes we might forget. So on our last episode of 2023, just wanted to go over some of that and see what happens for 2024. So those of you that are on Facebook and and YouTube, you can definitely ask questions or to the contribute to the conversation using the chat function, and I would definitely see uh, all your contributions and comments. So let's get into it. Housing, that's definitely what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the connections to the Greenbelt scandal that took a large proportion of the news cycle provincially, but we do know that that had some impact here locally. So we're going to do a recap of the Greenbelt scandal and what the implications were for Hamilton politically and in every. And then our last topic for today is going in Hamilton, and I wanted to have that discussion or comment about it. Coleman, Kevin Warner, Fallon Hewitt, and Greg O'Brien. And we talked about the impact of journalism on democracy. And so moving forward to 2024, I thought it would be great for a little conversation, little commentary around what the future of democracy looks like, at least in the Hamilton landscape, and and what that means for residents across the city in 2024 and in the upcoming years to follow. So housing. I think when we talk about housing, uh, there's I want to acknowledge that there is a long range of issues as it relates to housing. There are a number of families that are trying to purchase a home, which has become out of reach for many people. That is a reality. Um, then you get to folks looking for affordable rents, whether it's subsidized or market rent. That's also a challenge. Whether you're looking for a one bedroom apartment, two bedroom, family size, there's a challenge to find something that is affordable that allows you to um, pay your rent, pay your utilities, purchase groceries, and all the other things that families and individuals need to do to survive and thrive. So that is definitely a challenge for many, not only in Hamilton but across the country and even across the globe. And then there is an issue of folks that are houseless, and that can look in many ways, whether it's youth, whether it's young people, young workers, folks with disabilities, whether it's veterans, whether it's seniors. We are talking about a cross section of folks from different backgrounds, different experiences, and I think I am starting this discussion from that point of view because sometimes when we engage in the discussion around houselessness, the intersections of poverty, social determinants of health, we tend to always blame communities and people for the situation they are in, not remembering, not remembering that uh, we do not know the histories and where people how people got to where they are. So on the issue of houselessness and encampments, I think in Hamilton 2023 was a flashpoint discussions around encampments and houselessness and some of the solutions to be brought forward or the lack of solutions to be brought forward. And before I get into the stories that happened throughout the year, I wanted to start by saying that um, the issue of encampments didn't start this year, didn't start in 2022, didn't start in 2021, didn't start in 2020, and didn't start in 2019. Encampments have always been present. The difference between pre-COVID and now is that pre-COVID encampments were in the periphery, in the trails, in the forest, in the bushes, if I can use that term, right? So on a public level, most residents weren't seeing this as a critical issue, right? But for some folks in the community, they knew these encampments existed. Fast forward through COVID, and now COVID, because everybody was stuck at home, and there was, if I could use this term, freedom in public spaces. That means that now encampment folks, encampment neighbors now could take public space, right? So now that became a thing, and that changed how we view the use of public space, right? So when we fast forward to 2023 and we still have encampments and we still don't know how to deal with encampments, the question then becomes, who is responsible for coming up with the policy decisions and the policy actions to address the issue of housing, encampments, poverty, social determinants of health, and the other factors that we all know are present in encampments, right? And I would say that 2023 exposed how political leadership on all levels, have really missed the mark. And I'm going to cite some examples here that were newsworthy or that happened throughout the year in 2023. So first off, there was an encampment protocol. You know, I think the maybe let me back up a little bit. Nobody, and I think this has to be very clear. Nobody has advocated for people to live in public parks. Okay. However, however, if there is no space and nowhere for people to go, then encampments is what you have. The question then becomes, how do you ensure folks are housed? That is the underlining solution to ensuring that encampment neighbors do not encamp in public spaces, right? Underlining solution is provide housing, and there you go. And I think what has happened throughout this year is that we've spent a lot of time not on the solution, but on the emotional response, the emotional response to the fact that now uh, part of the encampment discussion, right? If we spent more time on solutions, then we wouldn't have to be in a place where we keep on moving encampments and people in encampment from place to place to place. Again, that's waste of resources. That's traumatization of our neighbors that live in encampments. That's a lack of compassion. That's um, a destructive health cycle, right? And so this year, if you would remember, uh, City Council established some encampment town halls all across the city. And I went to I didn't go to all of them. I went to the one up on the mountain, went to the one that happened downtown at the convention center. And I think, um, to be honest, if we're just being frank, I felt that the town halls that were hosted were used as a political stunt to appease the anger and emotion about encampments, and not to develop solutions to address uh, a lack of housing for encampment residents, right? So at the Mountain Town Hall, we had people saying housing isn't a human right. The fact that most folks were not happy with encampments or the encampment protocol. Some counselors use that as a as an argument to say we don't want encampments. Fine, but then you are not creating or coming up with a solution, and that was the bitter part of the whole discussion and the town halls that happened across the city. And the other disappointment to is that, for people that are supposed to be um, the first response to what happens in our city, not even coming up with all solutions, materials, to say the least. Give me a sec. Sometimes we get some technical difficulties. Okay. So yes, back to what I was require um difficult thinking, requires um breaking down some of the things that we think should happen, and it also requires different levels of people, neighborhoods, political leaders, non-for-profits, community organizations to come together to come up with a solution. And we're not doing that, and we're spending time in town halls just like using it as a emotional piece to say no, right? So it was very disappointing, and I think out of those town halls, nothing was done. There was the issue of the Hamilton hats. Their full their full acronym escapes me, but hats also didn't happen. I'm not here to uh, discuss the lack of community consultation and decision making that went on. I think there's critiques of hats, and also why it happened, why it didn't happen, who made the final decision, all of that. In any extent, that didn't happen as well. um and what did happen though, and I think this is why I am talking about this, was Councillor Francis brought a motion forward to start a registry where residents like you, myself, could sign up to be on this registry to host encampment residents in our homes or on our private property. And at first, when the motion was brought forward, many I thought it was a rhetorical suggestion, but needless to say, it ended up that other councillors were supportive of his motion. And if my memory serves me for correct, the motion did pass. I think it was by 9-6 or something. And it was magic to see that there was councillors and our mayor in support of um, developing a registry where any resident can sign up to quote unquote host an encampment resident. And even if thinking about liability, this would be something that shouldn't be entertained as a solution, right? Knowing that the city itself has public lands that it could use, knowing that city housing has buildings that haven't been renovated. I think there was a news story that broke that a city employer was squatting in one of those uh, buildings that haven't been renovated. Right, like these are all things that could be done, and we waste our time doing town halls uh, engaging in emotional anger. And then here you have a sitting counselor saying, let's put it back on residents. Meanwhile, all of these folks in 2022 were like, I'm the right person for this job. I want to make the city better. I want to tackle these issues, right? And to come up with a, a policy or a motion like this is very, very I, there are no words. There are no words to describe um why someone would even come up with that and have uh more than 50% of their colleagues also. That motion passed. City council is supposed to report on viability of this would even be possible. And you know, this is the disconnect that I see with municipal a counselor. A counselor will want this, and then that same counselor will then say we need to be fiscally responsible. But the motion that, in this case, the motion that you put forward is wasting time, staff time, right, and energy, right? That could be um that could be used somewhere else, and yet we waste time like this, and that same person would be like, I'm only here to money for the time. Yet they are the same people with the most ridiculous solution, and that waste your time. So we really have to start um thinking and holding our elected councillors, mayors, whoever, accountable for some of the decisions that they make. Because another thing too that we are seeing, and this happened throughout the year, is that we elect uh, these individuals. They say they have a mandate. They never talk to community members in their town halls that they have. They can't even get more than 25 people or more than 30 people to come to their own town halls, and yet they speak like they have authority of 20,000 people, right? We have a housing crisis like never before, never before. And none of them are thinking critically to come up with a solution that will work best for not only encampment residents, but for our city in general. In general. So it's a huge. I see some folks on Facebook, a couple of comments. Kudos, man. I like your commitment to development. Well, if we don't have a commitment to community development, the community will there'll be nothing left in the community for you and I. That's why everybody needs to be committed to their community, to their neighborhood, to their society, so that we can make this a better place for everyone. We got David. Let's think before the weather thinks for us. Well, thinking is a huge part of getting to some of the solutions. So when it comes to housing, I really think our city is missing the mark. You can check out the work done by Tevia Morrow from the Hamilton Spectator, who does incredible work around housing and the precarious nature that residents are facing, tenants, families, seniors, folks living with disabilities. You listed all. The challenges are real, and it's time for our council to really step up. I don't want you to think that this is just about our city council. I think definitely provincial government play a huge role. Having done so, I think here in Hamilton we have, if my memory serves me right, we have five MPPs, two that are in government, MPP Skelly, MPP Neil Lumsden. We'll get to them a little later in the show. Um, uh, MPP Sandy Shaw, MPP Monique Taylor, and MPP Sarah Jama. And I think you have two that are in government. Both of them, we haven't heard a thing about what their vision is to address this huge issue. You know, they show up at announcements when a housing development is complete. I think there was a housing development out on Queenston, um, in I believe Ward 4. I'm going to use Ward 4 because the neighborhood name is not coming to me right now. Uh, they show up anytime there's an announcement, when there's transitional housing, affordable housing, new condo, whatever it might be. They'll show up at the announcement, but we do not have any clue as to what is their strategy to address the issue of housing, encampments, and what have you. And again, this is what I mean by we as residents and people that are concerned, we really need to start thinking about how we hold political leaders accountable. Come election time, they're always selling us the sweet juice and the sweet candy of how they are the ones that are going to address all of these issues. And then after the election is done, we don't hear from them. There's no accountability, right? So we really need some accountability here. And that's going to lead me into probably the biggest news item from 2023. That was the Greenbelt scandal. And while this is more of a provincial, um, a provincial story, the ripple effect was felt in Hamilton in huge ways. So I give you a quick recap. I'm trying to find some of my notes. Yes, I'll give you a huge recap. So basically, our premier said he wasn't going to open up the green belt, and all of a sudden, the green belt was open, and we had developers and speculators purchasing and meeting with ministers and chief of staff and all of that. There's so much news articles out there now, so you can Google it, Greenbelt, and you will find all of that information. Long story short, um, there was that had close ties with the premier, with locally here, MPP Lumsden, MPP Skelly. These developers gave them money, and lo and behold, Greenbelt was open. Some of their properties were in that were in the opening, and it was a huge scandal. 8.3 billion, right? You open land, and your friends make 8.3 billion. initially they were like, "Hey, we need all of this because we want to build 1 million houses or 1.5 million houses, whatever that number is." But that was not the true value here. Many experts have said there's enough land. There is enough land to start building different types of houses. Okay, not just um, dwellings, but lots of houses and different types of houses. Right. So how does this connect to Hamilton? Well, let me see if I can put it in. I can type something in the chat. So one of the one of the developers and names that that was involved or caught in the crosshairs of this scandal was a developer known by Sergio Mancia. And I think it's very interesting. Not many people talk about this when it comes to provincial and municipal politics in Ontario or maybe even in Canada. And I will talk about this in this episode. And I think Sergio Mancia is an example of this. You know, municipal governments are by and large are responsible for land use planning and what have you. And the connection goes back to the province. So what developers do is because they know of this connection there, right? They stack the deck for them. What do I mean by that? So someone like Sergio Mancia, right? He he donated to Councillor Matt Francis's campaign $750. Donated to Councillor Esther Paul's campaign $750. Donated to Councillor Tom Jackson's campaign $500. Donated 550 to Councillor Spotter Forest's campaign, 500 to Mayor Andrea Horvath, and then $500 to John Paul Danko. Now, let me very clear. There is nothing illegal about donating to any political, any candidate that's running for office. Okay, he he can donate as who has now donated more than 5,000. Actually, the city has charged him and another developer for going over the limit. So they spend all this money on political candidates running for city council, right? And then they spend another ton of money uh, supporting the political party that they think is going to make government. So if you read some of the reporting around the Greenbelt, you will notice that Sergio Mancia and others donated to conservative candidates. In fact, MPP Lumsden, after he won his seat in the legislature, Mr. Sergio Mancia in the legislature as his supporter. So whether there's something nefarious going on or not, the fact that you have an individual who is a developer interested in land use, planning, all of that stuff, you have this person donating to a slew of political candidates on a councillor level, then on a provincial level. So invariably, they are trying to influence the process. And if you say, "Oh, Kojo, why are you making an insinuating, why are you insinuating that that's what's happening?" When there was a data release FOI done by one of the news outlets, I think it was the Narwell, there was one of the developers speaking who said, I know which, I'm paraphrasing here, I know which buttons to push, but when it comes to the belt or when it comes to the land, da 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 da, I don't know buttons to push. So you have a slew of developers influencing how land planning goes on in this province. And this is a problem, right? This is a problem. I know some will also say, well, out of the list you read, um, and let me bring that list back. Out of the list you read, not all of them supported the stop sprawl decision, right? The decision around whether sprawl should continue or not. Well, I don't give credit to uh, counselors that are listed here that said no, we shouldn't sprawl. I give credit to the 20,000 people and Stop Sprawl organization that mobilized people to convince them. Because if that didn't happen, I can guarantee you that some of the folks on this list would have probably voted for the city to continue with sprawl. And I think even Councillor Pauls still doesn't believe that the city made the right decision to stop sprawling. So there you have it. I think these connections, right, on a council level connected to the provincial level, that then defines what policy decisions are made, is what is before us. So this leads me into our third point. Our third point here is that what is the future of democracy? What is the future of democracy? And I think here, um, and uh, I would say that um, we residents need to be engaged, right? On episode 4, when we're talking to some of the journalists, Greg O'Brien from CHCH, Joey Coleman from the Public Record, Kevin Warner, now formerly of Mountain Community News, Hamilton Community News, and Fallon Hewitt from The Spectator. We're losing news outlets. We're losing local journalism here in Hamilton. The 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 local community newspaper that used to have that we used to call the Hamilton Mountain News, Stony Creek News, Ancaster News, Dundas News, that used to be delivered every Thursday. I don't know about Ancaster, Dundas, Stony Creek, but up on community delivered every Thursday. We're losing that information. So now, where do residents get valid, informed, critical messaging, right? So I really, really think that residents across this city need to start being engaged, right? I know it's difficult. Not everybody has the time and the energy to to watch council meetings and what's going on at Public Works and what's going on at GIC and what's going on at the Board of Health. I get it. But at some point, we need to start being engaged, because when we're not engaged, we just give a free pass to our elected officials. Hey, Dave. Let's Okay, yeah, I got you. Nice seeing you, Dave. I see you're traveling all over the world now, huh? So yes, we need to start being seriously engaged in what's going on. One of the examples is everybody's up in arms about the possible 14% property tax increase, right? Yeah, I get it. That's a huge number, but then we have to go behind the numbers. Why is it that is 14%? What are the drivers of making it 14%, right? In episode 3, I spoke to Professor Zachary Spicer, who said the budget has been done before it even is presented to council. And better yet, let me ask this question to anyone that's listening: have any of you heard from your counselor asking you about what you would like to see in the upcoming city budget? Right? If you haven't heard from your counselor, from your MPP about an upcoming budget, then when they are making decisions about a budget, whether it's the municipal budget or provincial budget, what would be their underlying motivation, right? Some will say, hey, Kojo, we just want it down. Cool, want it down. Now the question is, yes, it's a rhetorical question, David. You want it down, but then now this is where the engagement of residents needs to happen. What are we cutting? What are we keeping? And what do we say no to? Right? There needs to be a collaborative effort in terms of a counselor, residents, the need of a specific ward, and city in general, and immediate impacts, short term impacts, and long term impacts. If we are not having any of these discussions, then how do we know we are making the right decision? And this is what is plaguing our city right now. You have some people saying, hey, I'm only one vote, I can't change anything. Well, that means that you are not a good leader. Tell Miriam, Dave, tell Miriam I said hi, and wishing you and her the best for 2024. I see now your grandparents. That must be a huge blessing. So, um these are the things that we need to be engaged in. There's going to be budget deliberations happening next month, January, February, decisions made in March. How many will be able to connect with their counselors to say, this is what I want to see? How many counselors have even had a session with their residents to say, hey, this was before us at council. This is the reason why it's going up 14%. This is the reason why this is 5%. This is the reason why this institution is asking for X amount of $1 million. That doesn't happen. But then we engage in the emotional anger. One counselor or certain counselors say, well, and in episode 3, Dr. Spicer laid this out clearly You email them and they say, hey, it's not my fault. Majority of them wanted to vote for bike lanes, so we get bike lanes. Or majority of them said they want more benches, and it's not my fault, right? So we get this dangerous cycle where nobody has accountability for anything. But then you and I, as residents, are expected to believe and trust in them that they'll make the right decisions. That doesn't cut it. And so, on this episode of Kojo's Corner, I'm really trying to make the point that this year, 2023, we've seen how the politics is not jiving with the people because there's lack of participation, and so we are not involved in the decision making. So for 2024, we really, you and I, have to be engaged. And this is one of the reasons why I started this podcast, to create a space to have some of these discussions. And for some that are watching this, that you don't have to agree with what I say. You don't have to agree with some of the things I've said in the past or will say in the future. But the one thing we can agree on is that an engaged resident population means that political leaders are held accountable, and that increases the probability of making the right decisions, not only for you, but for me and for our whole community, right? So we have to start thinking about these issues, being engaged on different forms, right? If your counselor is having a town hall, go if you can, right? Demand more town halls, demand more public engagements. Let me give you a tidbit. You know, politicians are always great in private settings because in private settings there's no accountability. But in a public setting, there's accountability, right? So 2024, take your elected leaders, councillors, MPPs, MPs, and bring them into the public arena. Bring them into the public arena and don't let them hold the narrative. Because when we do things in the public interest, it benefits all of us in the long term. So I think that's it. We're about 5 minutes to 6. Um, and I think it's time for me to sign off. I hope everybody has had a great holiday break. 2024, we don't know what will come, but we do know that if we stick together, we talk together, we iron out our differences, keeping in mind that we still have similarities, we can build a better future, we can build a better city, we can make sure everyone feels like they have a part to play in Hamilton. That is the wish for 2024, and I hope you have a good 2024. We will be changing some of the things on Kojo's Corner for 2024. We're probably going to stick with a monthly show. We're still trying to figure out which day, what time, and all of that. But please stay tuned. Please follow us on Instagram. On Instagram, we are Kojo's Corner. You can follow us on Twitter as well, Kojo's Corner, and YouTube, Kojo's Corner. so that you can watch all the episodes. In 2023, we had 5 episodes. This is our fifth episode. I want to thank all our guests. Episode one, we had Chris Earl. Please check out Chris L's. Let me see if I can put it here. Hold on, give me a second. Let me see if I can try and put it here. So that you can own at your own time. Ah, there it is. So our first inaugural inaugural episode had um Chris Earl. A Substack, the sewer socialist. Um, it's not about social these socialists and be like, trust me. The things Chris writes is something that's good for everyone. It's he writes about some historical stuff, some current stuff, some interesting stuff around some of the research that he does and some of his interests and what have you. So you can check it out. And episode two, um, we spoke to Yulene Victoria about indigenous issues, reconciliation, land reclamation as it pertains to Hamilton. So you can check that episode out. Very, very um, and we also Professor Zachary at University. We talked about powers, municipal government, everything was great. We also spoke to some of this. Thank you very much. The state of journalism in Hamilton, and um, yes, this is our last episode. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everyone. We'll see you next year. Again, follow our Instagram to keep up to date with the schedule for next year. And we look forward to inviting some community members and some guests onto the show to talk about what's into them. Happy New Year and all the best for 2024.